Human beings interaction. What are the sense organs? Sense organs are the eyes, the ears, the skin, the pituitary gland in the nose, and the taste buds in the mouth. The sense organs contain receptors that are sensitive to stimuli. The stimuli is then transformed into signals called nerve impulses. So, the eyes, which are organs of sight. How the eyes work. The eyes sense light. The light enters through the pupil. The lens focuses the light on the retina and an image is formed. This stimulates the receptor cells in the retina, which produce nerve impulses. These nerve impulses are sent to the brain through the optic nerve. So here we have the different parts of the eye. Here's the iris, the pupil, which is where the light enters, the lens, which is where the light is focused, and the retina is where the image is formed here, and the optic nerve is where the nerve impulses are sent to the brain. So can we have another diagram here? So number 1, the light enters through the pupil. The lens focuses the light on the retina and it forms an image. And the receptor cells in the retina are stimulated, which produce nerve impulses, which are sent to the brain through the optic nerve. The ears. The ears are organs of hearing and balance. How the ears work. The ears sense sound vibrations that enter through the auditory canal. Those sound vibrations are transmitted across the eardrum to the cochlea. In the cochlea, there are receptor cells which send nerve impulses along the auditory nerve. There are also receptor cells which detect our position and movement. Therefore, the ear is also the organ of balance. So, number 1, we have how the ears work. Sound vibrations enter through the auditory canal. Sound vibrations enter here. The vibrations are transmitted across the eardrum to the cochlea. And in the cochlea there are receptor cells which send nerve impulses to the brain along the auditory nerve. The skin is the organ of touch. In the skin there are different receptor cells which detect stimuli, for example the heat of an object or physical contact with other things. These receptor cells send impulses to the nervous system. The nose. How the nose works. The pituitary gland in the nose is the organ of smell. It senses substances floating in the air which enter the nose. When this happens, it sends a nerve impulse to the brain along the olfactory nerve. So the pituitary gland senses the smells, and when the pituitary gland senses smells, it sends a nerve impulse to the brain along the olfactory nerve. In the mouth, the taste buds on the tongue are the organs of taste. They sense substances which enter the mouth, and they send nerve impulses to the brain along the taste nerve. So remember, the taste buds sense substances such as food which enter the mouth, and they send impulses to the brain along the taste nerve. So we have a recap here. So we have all of these sense organs along here, the stimuli here, and the type and the nerve is used. So the eyes is the sense organ. An example of a stimuli is the light, and it's sent via, and the nerve impulses are sent via the optic nerve. The ears, the stimuli is sound vibrations, and the nerve impulses are sent via the auditory nerve. In the skin, an example of a stimuli would be heat. These are sent by a nerve to the brain. The nerve impulses are sent to the brain by a nerve. Pituitary gland in the nose senses smells, and the nerve impulses are then sent to the brain by the auditory nerve. And the taste buds on the tongue in the mouth, and the stimuli would be substances such as food, and it is sent via the taste nerve. The nervous system. The nervous system is a network of neurons. There are 2 main parts: the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which is just made up of the nerves. So the central nervous system is composed of 2 organs, brain and spinal cord. The brain is protected by the cranium, and it has three parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brain stem. So we're going to look at these parts now. So this is the cerebrum here, the largest part here. The cerebellum is this smaller part here, and the brain stem is this part here. So firstly, we're going to look at the cerebrum, which is this part. The cerebrum interprets information from the sense organs. It controls language, memory, and thought. It produces voluntary responses. These are responses we perform by thinking, for example, just deciding to eat or pick up an object. The cerebellum. This is the cerebellum here. The cerebellum controls our movement and helps us keep our balance. For example, when we walk or run, the cerebellum stops us from falling over. And the brain stem. The brain stem controls basic movements that keep us alive. We perform them automatically, even when we are asleep. So, for example, breathing and the heartbeat. The spinal cord. The spinal cord is protected by the spinal column. It sends signals to and from the brain, and many nerves are connected to the spinal cord. It sends orders so that the effectors carry out involuntary responses or reflexes. These permit us to react quickly and without thinking. For example, we react involuntarily when we withdraw our hand quickly when we touch something hot. Yawning is also an example of an involuntary action. The peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is formed of nerves. Nerves are like cables. They connect the sense organs to the central nervous system and the central nervous system to the effectors, for example, the muscles. So here we have a recap of the parts of the brain. We have a cerebrum, which is this big pink part here, and that interprets information from the sense organs. It controls language, memory, and thinking. The cerebellum, which is this part here, controls movements and helps us keep our balance. And the brain stem, which is here, controls basic movements that keep us alive, like breathing and the heartbeat. Effectors, the execution of responses. The effectors. The orders that leave the central nervous system travel through the nerves to the effectors. The effectors carry out the responses. Some effectors produce substances such as the liver or pancreas, and some effectors respond by producing movements, like the muscles and bones of the locomotor system. The muscles. The muscles are formed of muscular cells that contract when they receive a nerve impulse. If the nerve impulse stops, they return to their initial position. The muscles of the locomotor system are connected to the skeleton by tendons. When one of these muscles receives a nerve impulse, the muscle contracts and moves the bone it is connected to. Some muscles, like the one in the heart, are not connected to bones. When they contract, the organ itself moves. The skeleton. There are three main functions of the skeleton: to be a frame for the body, to protect the organs, and to help the movement of the body. Joints. There are three types of joint: fixed, semi-mobile, and mobile. Fixed joints are the connected bones that cannot move, for example, the flat bones of the cranium. Semi-mobile joints. Semi-mobile joints are when the connected bones can move a little bit, for example, the vertebrae of the spinal column. Mobile joints are joined bones which can move freely. The bones are connected by very strong tissues called ligaments. These joints are covered by a protective tissue called cartilage and a lubricant liquid called synovial fluid. Here we have an example of a mobile joint, which is the knee. So here we have the cartilage, protective cartilage, and the synovium fluid here. Remember, muscles are connected to bones by tendons, and bones are connected to other bones by strong tissues called ligaments.